Hi, everybody. It's Zhané Ligon, Student Engagement Coordinator here at the Hynes Institute, and we're back at the Ionavation Podcast. I have our guest speaker today, Christopher Randall, who just did an amazing e-talk with some of our students here today. Christopher, can you just tell everybody a little bit more about you? He's a serial entrepreneur. I mean, he literally just told us about almost every industry I could think of that this guy has been able to put himself into, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's been great. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I have been through everything, pretty much everything, except for being a pharmacist or a doctor. I think it's just been nice to be able to do, different things. If you want to be an entrepreneur, you really have to challenge yourself. And early on in my career, being an entrepreneur wasn't something I knew I was going to be there at one point, but it took a lot for me to understand when I'm jumping in and out of things and going back to corporate and going out, then going back and saying, why am I going back? It took a lot for me to realize that that wasn't who I was, right? I like things changing all the time, evolving. I like to challenge myself. And I just like taking good ideas from beginning to end. And that's the passion is not so much in the product sometimes. Passion's in the actual process.
Right.
So if you don't have that, and you don't have the fortitude to deal with the ups and downs, that's what makes it difficult. But it's been there for a while. It just took a long time to come out.
I love that. It actually makes me think about a question I was going to ask you. So, what is your take on the idea of adapting versus pivoting, and how would you describe like which avenue you took out of those two different approaches in order to figure out entrepreneurship was the way for you?
Good question. Adapting and pivoting seem similar, but they're a little different.
Right.
I would say that most of my career has been pivoting, like going one thing and saying, all right, that's not right for me. Let me go this way. The unfortunate reality is that too much pivoting doesn't give you a straight direction feed. You need to kind of adapt to certain industries, right? So once I got into the technology side, and I'm not a coder or that kind of, but I love technology, love alternative energy. Once I got into that, then I adapted to, okay, now I can use my entrepreneurial spirit, but now staying focused in one, at least a channel, a vertical. I mean, I'm always looking at different things, but there's no more pivoting. It's more like adapting and then now growing. So that would be the difference between the two.
Okay, I love that. So when hearing that, it also lets me think about the fact that you were able to figure out okay, hey, I possessed all these different skills within all the different industries that I've pivoted in, right? And now I'm able to use those skills to maybe drive what the next, part of my journey was. What would be your advice to students in order to be able to learn how to learn what their skills are that they have possessed to be able to give them that drive to create the journey that they want to or the pathway that they want to create for themselves?
It's a good question. I would say there's three different things that I would put down. One is the inherent skill sets you already have, right? So you would determine I'm good at this, good at that. Like I mentioned during our speech, you do not want to be singing or playing a musical instrument. So I realized at an early age that I cannot do.
Performance was just not it.
No. My daughter got that from my father, but I got missed in this whole thing. So it's your traits you already have. And then you realize as you're moving forward, you have traits, but what are good things you're good at? What skill sets do? So I could have all these traits, doesn't mean they're going to be good skill sets.
Right.
And how do I apply them? And I think we talked about today is just learning off others around you.
Right.
So you're growing and learning new things. Because sometimes you feel like, for me, I had a bunch of skill sets.
Right.
I learned how to apply them, and all of a sudden I learned new things. I didn't think I'd write books. I didn't think I'd be going into alternative energy at one point. I just didn't see that.
Right.
But then you realize once I did that, I figured out the adaptation part of that, or being adaptive, was saying I'm very good strategically and operationally. So regardless of what I get myself behind, I know that's where I need to be.
Got it.
I'm not a bad salesperson. I'm not a bad marketer, but that wasn't my.
This is what this is my golden ticket.
This is my golden ticket. So, and I think that's what it is. You need to just figure that out.
I love that. So it's almost like the opportunities allowed for you to be able to learn that. It wasn't like you learned it and then put yourself in the opportunities. And I think that's sometimes where our students get stuck. They feel like, oh, until I do this or get this experience, that's the only way I'm going to be able to know what my full potential is. But it's really hey, just taking the chance, on certain things and opportunities. And that allows you to learn okay, what your focus is, or what, as you said, what your golden ticket is. What is the thing that makes you whatever you are, within whatever industry you're choosing to drive yourself into. So I love that. So another question I have is it's like this thing of like learning to put yourself in opportunities, learning to figure out like what traits or skills you have that you're the best at. But like, how do you allow yourself to also say, okay, I'm driven by passions as well, and how do you allow those passions to also cultivate what opportunities you choose to go into? Because I know that you've had pivots in these different industries, but I know that you probably had little bits of passion that made you say, I know you talked about caring about the environment so much, right? So like that's an area of an industry that you're like, okay, I have a passion for. How can I delve that into a newer opportunity? But how do you make the correct choices on which ones you should? Because we can have many passions, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, that's kind of the toughest part. It's hard to answer that
Mhm.
completely because a lot of people have different passions for different
Right.
things. Passion's one thing. Like I said before, businesses aren't successful just based on passion. You have to
Right.
have a good plan. You have to have good people. You have to have a good execution. All that stuff.
Hmm.
But when you find passions, you figure out if you have the internal and external skill sets,
Hmm.
motivation to get that done.
Right.
So I just found passion by way of just doing things, like in
Mm.
trying different things. Oh, I didn't realize I thought about it this way. I never would have thought that beforehand.
Right.
We talk about the whole energy thing and the recycle. I mean, when I was doing some hard time teaching in high school, and these kids like throw everything in the trash. I'm like, why are you recycle? My own kids, they're 21 and 24. They still don't.
The recycle.
What is going on? They're like, oh, and then my wife would be like, oh, it doesn't really matter because whatever
Right.
they
It's
do,
going to the same place.
it doesn't matter. You
Right.
have to just do it, right?
Right.
For mental consciousness.
Right.
So yeah, you just, like I said, until I started like getting involved,
Mhm.
maybe years ago, I didn't think about recycling, and now I'm like looking for the recycling
Everywhere, right.
everywhere. So I just think, and I think that the other thing too is, forgot to mention this in your last question, was that adversity is your best friend.
Mm.
Like people are afraid of failing, they're afraid of
Right.
something not happening, or I don't want to go into this thing or that thing. Adversity actually, not only it helps you build a better yourself
Hmm.
and not the business, but also that adversity may get you to pivot and
Right.
say, wait a minute, I never thought of that. So I always say that a lot of products, you'd say all, are the rationale of something that's missing or not happening or
Right.
that was against me.
Yes.
That's how people make money because they figure out a pain point.
Right.
So adversity is always good.
Mhm.
Pain points are always good because that's
Right.
what's going to help you develop the next product.
Right.
And you may think, oh, I didn't think about that. There's my passion.
Yeah.
And you can have passion for 3 or 4 things.
Hmm.
But the tricky part of being an entrepreneur is that when you have passion, you want to execute. When it's done, it's done, or it's not done. Then you can go to the other one. If you try to do too many things at once,
Right.
at the same time,
They get a little sticky.
that gets a little sticky. So it's kind of a little bit of a scale there.
Yeah, and it reminds me of like I always tell my students when they feel like, oh, I failed this or I didn't succeed in this, and I'm like, listen, fail means the first attempt in learning, right? Like
Yep.
you cannot learn, you cannot know like or de-risk something until you failed at it, right?
Mhm.
Because if there's only succession that you see, like then there's no way for you to know if something is truly exactly working. You're not seeing the other pain points or the other things that need to be resolved within this thing that you're creating. So
Right.
I think like that's such a great point. And it also leads to, I know that you discussed a little bit about, investment opportunities that came across in your career path. Some of them, maybe that were intentional, some of them that kind of like just flew into your hand, right? But, how can we like maybe teach students how to be able to, create these different opportunities to leverage, investment earlier in their life? I mean, they may not have 50 grand to, to just grow out,
Nope.
throw out just like that. But like, how can they start with the small, pockets of investment in order to create, opportunities for later on in life?
That's a great question. It's this level. It's harder because of their age and where they're at in their career.
Or maybe just in the sense of leveraging, I always think of investment, it may not be always monetary, but could it be within your network, right? Investing in people.
That's all right.
right?
So that's a good point, right? So yes, investing in people, always networking.
Right.
Like I said, I talked about it a little bit today. How these people I talked to back then, I met 10 years ago, and all of a sudden now we're doing business, but didn't happen then.
Right.
And then what are you doing for them? Well, I'm helping them with this. I all the time I'm helping people with different things that I know well, and they're helping me.
Right.
So yeah, definitely invest your time. Networking is huge. They really need to get out and talk to more, like really try to network with different groups because especially with the internet being what it is today, all those points. So I didn't mention this to them. So I forgot to mention this to them.
You got the secret deets.
I said, I want to say Google me.
Ah.
I forgot to do that. So just tell them that. Just say Google me. At one point, I was like number 2.
Wow.
Now my name is weird because it's not like it's Christopher Randall. So it's not like it's like Rodriguez or Smith.
Right,
where it's like everywhere.
Right.
But anyway, and then if you put Chris Randall sales, I'm number 1.
Wow. Okay.
But at one point I was in the top, like whatever. But sometimes it goes up and down. But the more you have touch points, the more you network across the web. That's how you. I was the one one woman that asked me. She said, I was talking about external versus internal, like brand building.
Right.
External is easy. They already do that with social media.
Right.
Just making sure what you put online is not going to be a deficit. Internally is about networking within the company. Don't just talk to your own department. Talk to the department. So it's a combination of those things.
Right. I love that. Because sometimes I think our students, they get stuck on the approach of networking. What are 3 tips that you would give to students on how to maybe start a conversation with, say, someone they're looking to receive advice from in order to start maybe a business venture, or just someone that they know has been in an industry that they'd like to maybe touch base in?
That depends on the situation. I mean, if you're in a group of people or a group that you're involved with, it's much easier because you're kind of already in that group, right? Or it's a runners club or this club. You already know each other. You have similar interests. If you're outside of that, and you're at like a networking event,
right?
Those are always trickier because you don't know who you're meeting, right? So you can meet someone that's not even in your space or whatever. So sometimes when you go, you're like, you have only so much time.
Right. 5-minute pitch.
It's a 5-minute, you're right. 5-minute pitch. But to start the conversation, especially at their age, it's kind of like, shake their hand like, hi. It's very awkward.
Yeah.
I mean, what I always tell people is find something you can identify. So if they're standing in a booth and they're looking at, what's just say, motorcycles. They're like, oh, I like that motorcycle. What brand is that? Oh, that's whatever. He's like, oh, hi, my name is Chris. How are you? I noticed you kind of direct their attention away from you doing this and go, who are you?
Right.
Generally, the networking event, people do that, and they're more formal. So if you're not in networking events, it's hard to just walk up to someone and like, who are you? And what are you doing? Right. So it's a little bit different, but there's different ways. It just depends on the situation. For them, it's just more in the beginning, it's awkward because at their age, I think they're just still like
trying to figure out how do I even have a conversation with anyone.
But finding commonality is good, like something like that. Or if they're at a thing and one guy's got a whatever soda and he's got like fruit and it's like, oh, what is that? Where'd you get that from?
Right.
Just make it so it's indirect.
Right.
That's the best way to do it.
Okay.
Because if you're direct, it's kind of like, well, what do you want from me? Right? Whenever someone comes up to me. So we're at the train station. I was getting off and this guy came up to me. I was like, oh, he's going to ask me for money. I'm like, what is he doing? And he just started laughing. He's like, "Oh, dude, nice suit." I was like, "Oh!" I started laughing. I have my earphones on. I'm like, "Oh, please don't come up to me." But the way he said it was, he could have asked me for $100 after that. But the fact that he mentioned my suit opened up the door. Anyway, so
I love that. Okay, great. And I like that too, especially because I think it goes back to we teach our students to empathize with individuals as much as possible, and that allows you to find out a lot more information about someone, about whatever it is that you want to talk to them about before just going straight for as you guys said, the ask, right? And it's if you open the door and create some type of relationship to segue in to maybe the ask, you may have a little bit more segue for opportunity that way. So thank you so much, Christopher.
You're welcome.
It was great speaking to you today. And I just hope to continue to have you within our space and be able, to just be some type of insight for our students here at the Hynes Institute.
Be glad to do it. And like I said, I opened the door to students that they want to contact me on LinkedIn. If they have questions.
Can you also let the people know where they can reach you, where they can find you?
Yeah, so my LinkedIn is Randall_Christopher. And I think there's a number at LinkedIn.in. I think it's not hard. Trust me, if you look me up, you'll find it. If you're on Google, just put in Chris Randall or Christopher Randall and put sales. I literally will be in the top 2 or 3 or 4. I'm right there. I pop up immediately.
Boom, not hard to find.
Make it nice and easy. Twitter, don't worry about it. But yeah, definitely LinkedIn and just Google me and you'll see my stuff on Barnes & Noble or Amazon, stuff like that.
Okay, great. Okay. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
See you again, guys. Bye-bye.